please tell us what an interview is?
A process where one is asked questions either about your life or something that you are interested in.
In short, an interview is a test carried out by an interviewer to an interview, either orally or written.
An interview is where you try to find out more things about a person or the specific subject.
Can you explain to us how to carry out an interview?
Well, I think the first thing that you do, you have your, shortlisted candidates. After that, they go through a team reviews where the people that were chosen or listed are actually, suitable for whatever it is that they will be interviewed for.
In two ways. Firstly, when I am being interviewed, when I am being asked questions by the interviewer and I'm an interviewee, or when I'm writing a test, taking it in test form, writing, answering questions. But mostly, after all, it's a matter of answering questions. That's how it's being carried out. Through asking more questions that relate to that specific topic, and finding out more answers to that.
Can you give us reasons for an interview?
People are usually interviewed because you want to hear and what do they think about something. What is their opinion and how do they feel about certain things in the environment or the places they are living in.
Interview is actually done to find out if you are the suitable candidate for that course that you have applied for.
The reasons are to make sure that you have the right person for that position.
Could you tell us how to prepare for an interview?
Research. You have to do research.
First thing to do is your attitude. You have to work on your attitude. Not even life is 100%, but to me, attitude is. So you have to change your attitude first. And your presentation, you have to look presentable. Somebody you have to see that this is a human being. Don't get there. I would study more about what they would ask me. For instance, maybe I applied for a job, then when I'm called in for interviews, I know they would ask me questions pertaining their job that I applied for. Yes.
Could you then tell us the difficulties and solutions during an interview?
Difficulties, there aren't actually difficulties within an interview. It just depends on how well prepared you are. Are you confident, and are you going to carry yourself with that confidence and full assurance that you know exactly what it is that you're doing?
Difficulties is seeing the real person underneath the facade that's in front of you. Because during an interview, people will be the most friendly, the smartest, the most interesting people out there. But when you finally appoint them, you will see, but he cannot do his job. So you as an interviewer, you have to look at that person open-minded, critically, and see, but is this the real you in front of me? Or is this someone that is desperate for this job?
The difficulties would be, especially if you know nothing about this institution and you are sitting inside there absent-minded, you didn't do any research, and every question they ask you, you just go blank. So that's one of the difficulties. And the solution would be the person who's interviewing you will know the powers or the strength and the weaknesses of you. What you can do or in which area you are good at when they're busy interviewing you. So yeah, that's what I want to look at.
So, welcome to our new learning series in development studies from NAMCAL. In program 2 today, we take a look at interviews. Our lesson objectives are that after watching this program, you should be able to know what interviews are, explain how to carry out an interview, list problems of interviews as a research method, and differentiate between the good and bad of interviews.
Good morning. I'm Joy Kaperu from the NAMCAL TV channel. Now, today we're going to talk about interviews, and we've invited a few people from various institutions to advise our students on what interviews are. Now, to my left, I have Mr. Cornelius Hess from Occupations Incorporated. Welcome, Mr. Hess.
Thank you.
So, could you give us a brief explanation on what an interview is? Because as you know, there are various and several definitions on what an interview is.
Good day, Joy. Good day, viewers. I'm glad to be here today. An interview in layman's terms is asking questions face to face, allowing the respondents to speak freely. It is a conversation between the interviewer and the interviewee.
Thank you, Mr. Hess. Mrs. Hilka Kankondi is the HR manager here at NAMCOL. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you.
Now, can you please briefly tell us how an interview is conducted?
Very well, Joy, and good day, viewers. An interview takes place when a panel is invited to an interview. Each member, an expert in his or her field, is brought to test the interviewee's competency. An interview can also be recorded by using a recording device such as a tape or a CD recorder. A secretary could also use or be used to write down the information.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now, to my left is Mr. Jack Kauta from the Ministry of Education. Now, sir, could you kindly explain to us the importance of an interview?
Greetings, Ms. Kaperu. Greetings, viewers. First of all, an interview saves time. Secondly, the information obtained from an interviewee is first-hand. Thirdly, we can say that an interview is verbal, or at least the biggest part of most interviews are. This is so that the candidate can feel relaxed and answer freely. See, one can find information from the candidate that you won't be able to get anywhere else. For example, the interview setting can contribute for the interviewer to read the body language of the candidate, or he can also smell whether the candidate is under the influence of alcohol, you see. So this setting can also contribute for the candidate to give detailed information.
Very insightful. Thank you so much, sir. Now, the last person I'm going to introduce is Mrs. Shanela Hengari. You are a human rights activist, correct? Welcome to the program, ma'am. Now, can you please tell us what advice you can give to the panel carrying out an interview?
Thank you for inviting me, Joy. Good day, viewers. A panel should consider the following: arrange interviews ahead of time, prepare questions carefully, dress neatly, arrange transport, arrange all materials and equipment beforehand, and take a look at an interpreter.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now, Mr. Hess, could you please tell us how the panel should behave when conducting an interview?
Well, first and foremost, one should always arrive on time. The chairperson of the panel should identify the purpose of the interview. One should be polite and friendly to create a non-hostile atmosphere for the interviewee. One should make notes or make recordings during the interview. And last but not least, one must listen clearly without uncalled for remarks.
Thank you, sir. Now, Mrs. Kankondi, could you please tell us what advice you can give to someone going for an interview?
Sure. While they need to collect as much information as possible about the company or institution that invited them for an interview, they need to prepare. This is very important.
Yes.
Arrive on time, dress neatly, be friendly and confident, be polite, and they need to answer to the point without bombarding the panel with a lot of information. And lastly, keep cool at all times.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Now, viewers, we're going to go on a short break. When we return, we're going to talk about the difficulties of an interview and how to solve them. Also, we'll be talking about the types of questions asked in an interview. Welcome back. Now, Mr. Kauta, could you kindly address the difficulties during an interview and the possible solutions?
Yes, you see, when you conduct an interview and the person does not understand the language being used, a translator must be used instead. Secondly, to avoid the interviewee to become unwilling to cooperate, one should conduct the interview in a very simple and brief manner. Thirdly, we can say that one should actually inform the candidate that his or her privacy will be respected if he or she appears suspicious or afraid. And then people may not tell the truth. So one should use backup answers by observation or interview enough people to tell the truth. And people may be offended by the use of questions. So embarrassing, offensive, and personal details must not be used at any cost.
Thank you, sir. Now, Mrs. Hengari, could you kindly tell us why confidentiality is so important?
Confidentiality is very important. If information is leaked, it is considered to be very unethical. The panel would then have to be replaced and interview rescheduled.
I must say, guys, I've had my fair share of bad interviews. Why do we interview people anyway?
Danny, were you not watching? Look, even before you conduct interviews, you already need to know what you want to ask people.
Danny, asking questions is a good way of carrying out research. However, it is very important that you ask the right questions and design them carefully.
Yes, you could start by designing a number of questions which you could ask. For example, a number of questions that an interviewer could ask a victim of gender-based violence is, tell us about yourself, when did the abuse start, and why did you stay despite the abuse?
And this type of questions called open-ended questions.
You're absolutely correct. It's called open-ended questions because there's no single answer to them, and they're designed to encourage people to talk.
Yes, you know what? Actually, interviews that are structured are easier and quicker to do. They are also easier to analyze. You see, when you make use of structured questions, or rather structured interviews, this is where now you deal with closed-ended questions that have a limited number of answers. Here, people are asked the same questions, and the answers are probably the same. Yes, no, or I don't know.
The researcher will also find it much quicker to carry out structured interviews because it's much easier to just count the number of people who say yes, no, or I don't know.
Yep.
That is true, Len. However, unlike open or semi-structured interviews, the researcher may not always find other things that could be relevant to the research.
You know what? One needs to be very careful when conducting research, when conducting interviews as a form of research, because there are many problems, and that might lead to biasness. So, if interviews are biased, it means they are leading the person being interviewed into answering questions in a particular way.
Exactly. Example of a biased question is, are you against gender-based violence? Now, people would probably answer yes to this question just to be polite because they think you want them to agree with you.
How do you carry out interviews?
You must be very careful how you carry out an interview.
To carry out an interview, you must explain why you are asking the questions and ask people if they mind answering. If they don't want to answer, you must not try to force them. Be very polite and patient, and do not try to rush them. Otherwise, they will not give you carefully thought through answers. Tell them that you only want information for your research and that what they say as individuals will be kept private and not told to anyone else. Do not ask biased or personal questions. When the interview is over, you must thank the person.
And you know what? Even before you conduct an interview, even though everything goes very, very well, there are still some problems that are related with interviews as a means of research.
Problems with interviews as a research method. It is very time consuming, and a lot of time may be wasted on listening, because the people being interviewed often chat or do not answer the questions clearly. Conclusions are based on a very small number of people's opinions. These can change, and their memories might be biased or faulty. People being interviewed may be suspicious. They may be afraid to give you their true opinion in case you tell other people what they have said. People being interviewed sometimes can't be bothered and either won't answer or will give you the wrong answers. The questions may be biased, thus making the research faulty because you would be leading people to say what you want. The people being interviewed might not represent the population that you wish to study.
But nevertheless, in spite of these difficulties, interviews can be a very useful way of knowing what people think and how they feel about certain things. And if planned carefully, they can be a very good way of finding out information.
Okay, but all interviews have their pros, which are good, and cons, which are bad.
That is all true. I think I have the perfect video of the pros and cons of interviews on my phone.
You do? Let's have a look.
When the phone rings and you're called in for an interview, it's an exciting time. It's a good idea to know the do's and don'ts if you want to ace this interview. This is Judy Miller for JobInterviewSite.com. Let's take a look at some interview tips. Here's some key do's for a successful interview. Do your research. Know what type of interview you can expect to be facing and then prepare yourself by practicing. Dress in business attire. Even for the most casual job interview, you should dress in business clothing. Arrive early. If you arrive late, even by a few minutes, forget about landing the job. It's a good idea to arrive 10 to 15 minutes early. First impressions. Greet everyone there from the receptionist to the interviewer with respect. Bring along extra resumes. Also, bring along copies of your letters of recommendation. Wait to be seated. Stand straight. Pay attention to your body language and wait to be offered a seat. Make eye contact with the interviewer. Have a firm handshake. Let's continue. Look enthusiastic. Display a high level of confidence and energy. Stress your achievements, skills, and accomplishments. Take a few seconds to evaluate the interviewer. This can tell you a lot about the person interviewing you. Show the interviewer what you can do for the company. Ask intelligent questions about the job. Take plenty of notes during the interview. Tell the truth. It's much better to be honest right away than to stretch the truth and then have to backtrack. These are the do's for a good job interview. Now come the don'ts. Don't say negative things about former supervisors, colleagues, or employers. Never answer a simple yes or no. Give an answer that's explanatory. Don't speak quietly. Rather than being soft-spoken, speak with authority and confidence. Don't be too open. Don't mention family or personal problems. Don't tell jokes. Don't chew gum. Don't leave your cell phone on. Turn off cell phones and pagers. Don't answer texts or calls. Don't smoke or drink before the interview. This way you'll have fresh breath. There you have it, the interview do's and don'ts that can increase your job chances. Good luck.
Wow, thanks Barbie. This is some good information.
Yeah, thanks.
I'm definitely going to download this on my phone when I get back home.
Yeah, you should.
Viewers, I hope you have enjoyed our lesson presentation on interviews. Now, before we say goodbye, here are a few points about interviews.
Open-ended questions are questions to which there is no single answer. Closed-ended questions are questions to which there are a limited number of answers. Semi-structured interviews are interviews in which people answer open-ended questions which encourage them to talk, giving them opportunities to expand on the subject. Structured interviews are interviews in which all people answer the same closed-ended questions. There are some good about interviews and also some bad of it.
I hope you have enjoyed watching and learning with us. See you again soon. Bye-bye.